Hey, it's Inveigh. I'm back with another quick video. Before we get started, if you enjoy my content or want to see more of it, please sub. Literally begging. I want money, and I'm being honest and upfront about it, so you should subscribe. Moving on, let's talk about lock-on. Recently, there's been a lot of discussion about hard lock-on in Armored Core and hard lock-on in general. So I felt like I should just create a video to go over some of the concepts of hard lock-on, how I perceive it, and why I think it has existed in the series prior, despite it not necessarily being as hard as something like Dark Souls or Armored Core 6 is shaping it to be. So let's define hard lock. Hard lock is when you target an enemy and through no input of your own, your camera and character move to face the enemy after a lock-on is achieved. If your camera and character turn to face an enemy automatically, that is a hard lock. How hard the lock is, we can talk about as well. So let's put this on a scale. So we'll say no lock-on would be a 1 out of 10 on the hard lock scale, and Dark Souls lock-on would be a 10 out of 10 on the lock-on scale. I would say Armored Core 4 Answer is somewhere around a 5 or a 6 on the hard lock-on scale. And to demonstrate that, we'll pull in our wonderful assistant, Kasumi Sumika, or Serene Hayes. So, once I get a lock on the enemy here, as you can see, the camera is being moved for me. If I boost around or out of the way of her, then the camera will move to face her independently without any input from me. This is a hard lock, just because, like I said from the definition earlier, it is a lock-on that independently moves your camera and character without input from the user. However, this lock-on can still pretty easily be broken, and it also disables itself anytime you touch the stick, which is why it's still relatively soft compared to something like Dark Souls, where no matter what you do, you're pretty much never going to break the lock. So on the hard lock scale, like I said, Armored Core 4 Answer probably about a 6 out of 10 on the hard lock scale. However, the things that go into getting a hard lock and how hard your lock aren't necessarily uniform across every AC in the game. For example, this AC that I'm using right now is a lightweight build. Well, relatively light, it's more of a midweight. It's a midweight build, and so it has good enough turn speed that the auto sight can just move my camera and my AC to keep up with the enemy. Now that I've swapped over to a tank build, you can see that my auto sight is going to be a little bit less effective because my turning speed is not as high on this AC. 4 Answer's auto sight is quite strong, so even in this reduced lock-on state, it's still pretty strong. However, it's considerably easier for my lock-on to get broken when on a heavy build with low turn speed than it is on a light build with high turn speed. While it doesn't actually change the function of the lock-on system, and your lock-on speed and lock-on time may be the same stat-wise, the combination of slower turning and potentially worse arms will make it feel like your lock-on has gotten worse when you switch to a heavy build. In this way, the lock-on's hardness can be pretty variable in 4 Answer especially, just because there are a lot of factors that lead to how hard your lock is, but at its hardest, it's still probably about a 6. And the worse your turn speed is, the weaker the lock gets. I'm going to go ahead and move us over to 5th Gen, and we'll briefly talk about how the lock-on works in that game. Alrighty then, here we are in Armored Core Verdict Day. A little bit later on in the timeline, but we still have a pretty hard lock. So, in Verdict Day, the lock-on is considerably weaker than it is in 4 Answer. However, as you can see, I'm still automatically tracking my target when I have my fire button held down. In this game, it is much, much weaker than it was in the previous entries. So manual aim is going to be kind of your core tenet. However, this game still does match the definition for hard lock that we set earlier of moving your camera and AC for you without user input. As you can see, we are auto-tracking the enemy, and if he would move some more, it would be easier to demonstrate this, but he's just kind of holding still. Come on, buddy. You can do it. You can do it. There we go. As you can see, the game will automatically turn your AC to face the enemy and automatically move your camera so long as the fire button is being held down. Like I mentioned, this is much weaker than it was in Armored Core 4 Answer, and much easier to break. While 4 Answer is probably where I would say a 6 out of 10, maybe a 5 out of 10 on the hard lock scale, this game is closer to maybe a 3 or a 4 on the hard lock on scale, just because manual aim is going to be your primary method of engaging with this game, and while the hard lock on in this game will move your character for you and will aim for you, it's more of an assist than your primary form of engagement. So as far as hard locks go, this one is pretty soft. However, it is still a hard lock because it does move your character. Moving on to something a little bit less hard, let's talk about old gen. Alright, now we've gone back in time to Armored Core 3. I will give you a disclaimer ahead of time, I'm really bad at the old gen control scheme, so this gameplay is going to be kind of painful for anybody who's decent at these games to watch. However, it should be good enough to demonstrate my point that old gen doesn't really have a hard lock. As you can see, while I have a lock on the enemy, it doesn't really track them for me. It just kind of moves my my arms a little bit. It doesn't actually move my legs or my camera itself. There is very slight camera movement, but it's pretty minuscule, and the ease of lock break here is insane. While this is still a lock on, so it is, you know, on the scale, it's maybe a 1 or 2. This is about as soft as you can go lock on wise. The only thing that could be softer than this, on my Inveigh patented scale of lock-ons, would be a manual aim only game where your bullets go directly at your reticle. Okay, so we've talked about Armored Core 4 Answer, we've talked about Armored Core Verdict Day, and we've talked about 3rd Gen. Now all we've got left to talk about is Dark Souls and Elden Ring Lock. This is about as hard as it gets. There is pretty much no possible way for me to break the lock on this enemy, and they will be able to, and I will be able to strafe around them in any direction I want, roll. They can run basically completely off screen or get behind things. My lock-on still won't break. This is a true 10 out of 10 hard lock-on. The other games, their lock-ons were still hard, but they were considerably softer because it was possible for them to be broken. In this case, however, nothing short of these piece of shit Zamor Knights murdering is going to break that lock-on. So, that pretty much covers all of the styles of lock-on that FromSoft have used in their mainline titles. I believe, if I am incorrect, someone feel free to yell at me in the comments. But with all that in mind, I'd say it's relatively clear that hard lock-on is not a new addition to the Armored Core series. 4 Answer, V, and Verdict Day all have relatively hard lock-ons by the definition that we gave at the beginning of this video. While their lock-ons are considerably weaker than something like Elden Ring, or considerably weaker than what we expect to see in Armored Core 6, it is still a hard lock-on because it maneuvers your character and camera without input from the player. That is pretty much it. I just wanted to make this video because I see a whole shitload of people saying that hard lock has never been in the Armored Core series before, and that its introduction in Armored Core 6 is something of like a death knell for the series. Yeah, kind of bullshit. Just being frank. Hard lock, been a thing. Not as hard, granted, as we're expecting to see, but it's been a thing for a minute. If you found this video at all informative or enjoyed this kind of breakdown, please subscribe. I am literally begging. I really want money. That's the end of the video.